Identity strengthens purpose and lifestyle. We'll be taking our anchor from the book of Daniel, chapter 1. After Nebuchadnezzar successfully took over Jerusalem, there was a reorientation, an introduction to a different civilization. Firstly, the best of the best in Jerusalem were selected, which Daniel and his colleagues were part of. Secondly, their diets were changed, their names were changed, and even their language was altered. The idea was that they would be trained for 3 years until they're able to stand in the presence of King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, the training included them learning the language of the Chaldeans, their way of life, systems, and cultures, and everything in between. But here's the significance I want to point out. When you change somebody's name, what is it that you're trying to achieve? If not making them forget their identity or who they are. We all know that names are powerful. Depending on what name a person is given, it actually shows a lot of the way the person lives their lives or the kind of fortunes that follows the person. The meaning of Daniel is God is my judge. Hananiah, God is gracious. All of them had their names dedicated to God Almighty. But as soon as they stepped their foot in Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar ensured that their names were changed. For example, Daniel's name was in alignment with the role he would play in Babylon. His name became Belteshazzar, which means protect the king. And his other colleagues had their names changed as well, but their names were now dedicated to the gods of Babylon, Aku, Bel, and Nebo. For every single time these guys were challenged, they were one step closer to disobeying God, denouncing their faith, and altering their identity. Remember I said that purpose and lifestyle flows from identity. It flows from who you are, the things that you represent, your core values, what you stand for. Remember that Daniel refused to eat of the king's portion. And this was because Daniel was trying to still preserve the Jewish dietary law. And let's not forget that whatever King Nebu and his cabinet members were eating were dedicated to pagan gods. And so Daniel said, I am not going to be part and lot of this. So let me flesh this out in today's world. You go out with friends, they serve alcohol, and probably you do not take alcohol. But for fear of judgment, you agree to drinking that alcohol. Listen to me, dear adult. Nobody born of blood and water should make you say yes to something that you would usually say no to. You and I should be bold enough to say yes or no without fear of how we'll be judged or perceived by others. And I also do not know why it's a norm for people who are upright to always shy away from doing the right thing. I mean, look at lawless people. Lawless people know they shame. Like these guys do whatever they want to do with their full chest. They do not care how people perceive them. They do it and move on with their lives. Whereas you, who knows the truth, you cower and you hide and refuse to do what you're supposed to do. One thing the book of Daniel did very well, aside from show us a different aspect of faith, is to enforce identity and core values. Daniel never for once conformed to the systems of the Babylonians because this guy knew who he was. He did not care if it would cost him his life. You and I should be bold enough to speak for ourselves without being ashamed of how people will perceive us. And so I'm asking you now, who are you?